Okay. Welcome everyone to another round of Wellness Wednesdays. So forgive me for all the moving boxes in the background. My husband and I are in the process of moving, so it's kind of crazy here. But as you can see, we are recording this session. So if you go ahead and just click, yes, if you're okay with that, and therefore we would upload it to our website afterwards for folks who weren't able to come today. And then if you could just go ahead and mute yourselves just so we don't have any background noise, that would be great. And then we can go ahead and get started. So we have a special guest with us today. Jenny Rodgers works for Campus Recreation, and she's the Assistant Director for Fitness and Wellness there. And so I've worked with Jenny before. She's really great at what she does, and I'm excited for her to talk about today the 8 dimensions of wellness, and then specifically focus on physical fitness and how we can maintain and take care of our bodies during this time of COVID-19 and being at home. So with that introduction, I'll let Jenny take it away.
All right. Thank you, Christy. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. So kind of like what Christy mentioned, we're going to be talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness, but then we're going to spend a little extra time at the end talking about physical wellness. So I'll give us some ideas of things that we can do to kind of stay moving during these uncertain times when most of us are stuck at home. But I'll go ahead and try to share my screen. Let me see if I can get that set up. There. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Good. All right. So kind of like I said, if you're just hopping in, we're going to talk about finding wellness at home. So wellness and well-being are kind of big words that we hear often in a multitude of settings, but they're not always clearly explained. So my hope is just to kind of break that down a little bit more. A big tool we use in Campus Recreation is the wellness wheel. Let me go back a little bit. So we use this as a tool. Sometimes we use it as an activity, but it's just a way for us to showcase the 8 dimensions of wellness. And we're going to break these down one by one. But when we use this as an activity, what we'll often do is we'll have people grab a marker or something to color with. And then once we explain what each dimension means and some example of each dimension, we have people color in the little pie pieces or pizza slices, whatever your preference is, based on how comfortable they feel in that dimension at that time. And so that's something that is always changing. And the idea is that if we can develop healthy habits in all 8 dimensions of wellness, we become more well-rounded, holistically well people. Switch back a little bit there. And so, like I said, we're constantly growing and changing our habits as different factors in our life change. So for example, there might be points in our life where we feel super far ahead in one dimension, like if we, land our dream job and we love it so much, so our occupational and our financial wellness might be better than ever, or that pie piece might be a little bit more full. But on the flip side, this new job could be sacrificing our social wellness and the time that we're spending with our friends or even our physical wellness. So this tool is something that we find really beneficial, and it can kind of help bring those habits into perspective and keep us on track. And I've never seen somebody that has 100% each piece is absolutely full, because, that's not the point. The idea is that our habits are constantly moving and constantly changing, and so are we. But the more we can do to adjust it to create a little bit more balance, that's the goal at the end of the day. So like I said, we'll break down each one. We'll kind of go around the pie piece, and I'll give a brief definition of what each dimension means and just an example of ways that we can engage with it at home. So starting with emotional wellness, this is examples of having a positive attitude, high self-esteem, a strong sense of self-ability, and the ability to recognize and share a wide range of feelings with others in a constructive way. So some examples of engaging with our emotional wellness or emotional well-being at home might be keeping a journal to reflect on these times. These are very strange and uncertain times that we'll tell our children, our grandchildren, our friends about for years to come. So taking note of what's happening around us and how we're feeling and how the impact of our current situation, or the impact that our current situation is having on our emotions. So I think oftentimes when people hear emotional wellness, they just think, do I cry all day? And it goes much deeper than that. It's a point of reflection and just kind of staying in touch with how we feel and being able to articulate that to other people. Social wellness. So we define this as the ability to build personal connections with others, deal with conflict, and be part of a positive social network. So some fun ways that we're finding social wellness during quarantine could be playing online games with friends via Zoom, creating a regular schedule of virtual gatherings. So having those regular meetings with friends, maybe people that we haven't seen in a really long time because of distance or whatever that might be, or even brainstorming a list of things that we want to do with friends once quarantine is over. I know that might seem like something that would make us sad, but in talking with a lot of students when we're putting together these ideas, a lot of them have gotten really excited about just the idea of planning trips and fun things that they can do with their friends once this situation is resolved. For occupational wellness, we define this as seeking and or having a career that is interesting, enjoyable, and positively contributes to society or working toward that. So oftentimes when we talk about occupational wellness, people assume, you know, if you don't have a job, you're not occupationally well. But if you are a student and you're working toward a career, that's still a good practice of occupational wellness. If you're in a major that's of interest to you, that's still a good practice of occupational wellness. So some tips at home. I'd be using this time to update your resume. So even if, you know, those of us who are in a job, using this time to kind of refine some of the things that we've done in the past year, adding the skills to our resume. And something we've been talking about with students is searching for dream job descriptions. So some of you may have done this before, but just looking at jobs, you know, even if you're not applying for them, but figuring out what those dream job descriptions are, and then making a list of the different skills and qualities that are needed for those jobs. So sifting through and saying, you know, I want to be a manager of this type of company, finding a job description similar to that, and figuring out what those specific skills are that are needed for that job, so you can try to add that to your list of things that you want to build and get experience with. Intellectual wellness. We define this as being open to new ideas, thinking critically, and seeking out new challenges. So ways that we can do this at home, we can do this by learning a new skill, a new language. There's all sorts of resources out there right now, and a lot of free resources that are out there right now to learn new languages or pick up a new hobby that's mentally stimulating. Picking up a book that we've been needing to read for a long time, but might not have time to previously. So I know reading for fun is something that kind of goes to the back burner once we're engrossed in our studies and we're reading things, you know, for work or for school or whatever that might be. And playing brain games is another fun thing. So there's a lot of those that are available online. There's a lot of great apps that have free trials there. So just doing things that constantly are mentally stimulating to kind of take a break from the monotony of the day. Financial wellness. This is one that people always have moans and groans once we get to this topic, but we define this as understanding the importance of sustaining ourselves financially for the short and the long term. So, you know, a lot of us are thinking there's a lot of ways that we might be saving money during this situation, but there might be a lot of ways where we feel like we're strapped for money depending on different circumstances during this time. So at home, we can be thinking about all the ways that we're saving money now. So eating at home, being more efficient with gas, and thinking about how we can incorporate these money saving habits into the future. So I know personally, you know, the more I've cooked at home, the more I've realized how little I cooked at home before this, and how much money we save by not going out to lunch and doing all those things and going to Starbucks every day. So what are some of these habits that we are adopting now that we'll be able to maintain to continue saving money in the future once we return to our previous norm, if you will? And then also finding some creative ways to make money. So, you know, while there are a lot of jobs that are not available right now, there are all sorts of opportunities that are popping up. I was watching a news story the other day that was talking about virtual babysitting, and that's a thing that a lot of parents are hiring people for if they're working from home and they're trying to, you know, take a break from being the teacher, being the babysitter. So they'll hire a virtual babysitter to do some online activities with kids. So there's a lot of fun different ways that are popping up, tutoring, everything that you can think of. So there are some opportunities that are coming available during this time. Environmental wellness. So this is one that I think has multiple meanings for people. Usually when we say environmental wellness, people's first reaction is, oh, you know, I'm not very outdoorsy, but that doesn't necessarily summarize environmental wellness as a whole. So we define this as being aware of the interactions between the environment, the community, and ourselves. So yes, it's about being sustainable. Recycling is a great example of environmental wellness, but it's also about controlling the environment around you. So the example that we have at home is switching up your work environment, moving closer to a window with some natural light, surrounding yourself with photos or decorations that make you smile, light a candle, or create spaces that just make you feel good. So it's not just the environment outside of your home, it's the environment that you create within your home as well, and just making sure the spaces that you are creating are ones that bring you joy. So I know personally, I'm not someone that does really well with clutter around me. So at the end of the day, I'll try, even in my little home office area, I'll try to tidy everything up so the next day when I come into it, it's clean, it's organized, and that just kind of gives me a sense of calm before I start my work day. So just finding what those little things are for you and figuring out those ways to switch up your environment. I have a lot of friends who have just redecorated their entire home during this downtime just to kind of switch things up and give a different perspective. Spiritual wellness, this is, I think, another one that people automatically shift to a religious definition for, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean that. While there is, definitely parts of spiritual wellness that could be religious, there's a lot of parts that aren't. So we define this as just finding meaning in life events, demonstrating individual purpose, and having the ability to be compassionate toward others. So some things that we can do at home for this might be trying out a guided meditation. So I know Jennifer was hosting a Koru mindfulness course. So there's a lot of great resources that are out there. I know Headspace, and there's a lot of other apps that, again, are providing free services during this time, just to take a little bit of time out of your day and try out a guided meditation. I'm a runner, and there's, even as crazy as this sounds, there's meditation apps while running. So not like I'm running with my eyes closed or anything, but just kind of exercises that you can go through to practice breathing and to practice mindfulness while doing other activities. So finding a quiet space in your home and just reserving even 5 minutes, again, out of your day to give yourself some quiet time to relax and to reflect. And some of you may be laughing at this because you may be in a house full of people or full of children, and it may be hard to find just that 5 minutes of your day. But whatever that looks like for you, whatever it could be, just try to find that little bit of time to yourself to relax and just to breathe. And then last but not least, physical wellness. So this is where we're going to spend the rest of our time here today. So I think people's first reaction is eat healthy, work out, and while those are parts of it, there's many different ways to move. I always say that every body moves differently and every body moves differently. So separating those two words, and that movement looks a little bit different for everyone. So you absolutely don't need to go out and run a marathon during this quarantine, but there's tons of different ways that we can kind of keep our body moving, because I think we all know how important it is. So adopting healthy behaviors to prepare our bodies for optimal health and functioning. So we're going to go to the next slide here and talk about some easy ways to move more. So as you'll see at the top, we say aim for 150. That's the American Heart Association's just kind of norm, and it's the general norm that we should be aiming for 150 minutes of moderate activity each week. So that's over the course of a week. If you break that down into 7 days, that's 21 minutes per day of moderate activity, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity, which breaks down to 10 minutes a day. And so again, that can look different for everyone. That could be yard work, it could be a structured exercise, it could be yoga, it could be running, it could be going for a walk. But here are some kind of tips that I've put together of just ways that we can move a little bit more. I know a lot of us are sitting more than we're used to because we're just contained to a much smaller area than what we're used to. So first and foremost, controlling your stimuli. So making movement easy for you. If you've got a yoga mat, or if you've got different things that you can exercise with in your home, make them more accessible to you. So don't hide your running shoes or your walking shoes in the very back of your closet where you're never going to see them. Having them in a nice visible place that would be easy for you to pull from makes movement easy. It makes less excuses for you at the end of the day. The example I usually give for this when people are able to go to the gym and drive and go different places is having your workout bag already packed and ready to go in the front seat of your car before you go to bed the night before. So there's not really an excuse So you say, oh, I forgot my workout clothes. I can't go for a walk at lunch. I can't do that. So controlling your stimuli, making it easy for you to not make excuses. Going on wellness walks. So that is something that we are still fortunate that we are able to get outside and go for a walk. And I know that looks a little bit different for everyone, but just taking those little breaks out of your day when you feel like you've been staring at the computer screen for too long and going on a wellness walk. Create your own standing desk. So by no means do you need to go out and buy a standing desk, but getting creative with the items that you have around your household. So big boxes, putting a large box on top of your desk and just kind of creating that standing desk for yourself, or if you have a countertop in your kitchen, kind of switching up your scenery a little bit more with that. And with that, having standing or walking meetings. Most of the meetings that we have nowadays, if not all of them, are either on the phone or on the computer. So if it's a phone meeting, take it with you, put some headphones in, and turn it into a walking meeting very easily. A lot of people wouldn't even know the difference that you were walking during your meeting. Wearing comfortable clothing. So I think this kind of goes without saying during this time period. I don't know anybody that's getting super dolled up to start the day anymore, but just making sure you are in comfortable clothing to promote movement. So the more comfortable your clothing is, the more likely you are to move, and the more likely you are to take those little movement or exercise breaks during the day. Tracking your activity and finding accountability partners. This is extremely important, especially during this time period. So it's a little bit of physical wellness, but also some social wellness in there as well. So even if your accountability partners aren't within your home or wherever you're currently staying during this quarantine, they could be your friends from work, or they could be your friends from school. So finding those accountability partners and really holding each other accountable for whatever your movement is during the day. Taking the stairs whenever applicable. So if you're in a situation or you're in an apartment complex or something like that, and you have the option of elevator versus stairs, obviously stairs are the more healthy option to get you moving a little bit more, but we do know that the elevator is needed at times. Taking stretch breaks and move breaks every hour, super important. You can set up a timer on your phone. You can set up a timer on your watch. If you've got a fitness tracker or something, don't ignore those notifications when they tell you to stand and get moving. Try to listen to them, try to acknowledge them, because before you know it, the entire day has gone by and you could have just been sitting for the last 5 or 6 hours. This one is my favorite: turn waiting time into move time. So for instance, if you're going to go cook your lunch and it's going to take 3 minutes in the microwave, don't just spend those 3 minutes sitting there staring at the microwave. Use that as a chance to do some squats, or to do a lap around your house, or to dance, or to do something. So we spend a lot of our days just waiting for things. So instead of using our waiting time to literally sit there and wait, try to use that as our movement time. And before you know it, you'll have 150 minutes for your entire week racked up in a couple of days, if you consider how much we just sit around waiting for things to happen. Or even if it's commercial breaks, if we're watching TV at the end of the day. And then utilizing your virtual Campus Rec resources. So this is a little shameless plug, but Campus Recs, we've been working really hard to put out some daily workouts for everyone, whether it's via post or via live Instagram workouts on our Campus Rec page. So check out our website for some of those opportunities. We're shifting up our schedule a little bit for the summer, but those are all resources that we are trying to provide for all of you to make movement in your home a little bit easier. And so we'll get to desk exercise. I always butcher the pronunciation of that. But the one thing I want to touch on is kind of the quote at the bottom, and this is something that's really stuck with me recently, and it's prepare your body for the battles of life. And that might sound kind of intimidating, but everybody has different motivations for movement and for exercise, and I'm certainly not here to tell you what is a good motivation and what isn't, but one of my most powerful motivations for exercise isn't to get a six-pack, or it's not to look a certain way. It's just to make sure that my body is strong enough and well enough to fight the battles of life. So you never know what is going to get thrown your way, whether it's an injury or whether it's an illness. So the stronger your body is, the healthier your body is, the better chance it has to fight the battles of life, to whatever comes up. So ever since I started to think about exercise from that lens, it's really resonated with me a little bit more, because I think oftentimes we get wrapped up in the fact of we need to exercise because my doctor told me to exercise, or because the TVs and the magazines told me that I need to look a certain way. But if we really think about it, just taking care of our bodies so our bodies can take care of us, I think that kind of shifts the perspective a little bit. So with the little bit of time that I have left, we are going to, oh no, no, thank you. Okay, so desk exercise. I have these 10 exercises that all can be done from your desk or from wherever you are. So I'm going to let you take a picture of these if you want to. Again, I know Christy said this would be recorded. So I'll give you another minute here before I turn the screen back on to me, and then I'll demonstrate some of these exercises from my home little office area. And we'll get moving, but this is the list of 10 exercises. If you're looking for that 10-minute movement break in the day, you can try each of these for 45 seconds. So resting for 15 seconds in between, and 10 minutes is all it would take to go through all of these. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, so if everyone can see me, I think that works. Am I good, Christy? Cool. All right, so I'm going to do my best to try to demonstrate all of these in a frame, but definitely if you can't see something or you want me to repeat something, say something in the chat. But starting with chair squats, so let me prop this up a little bit more. So sitting up and down in a chair is the functional movement of a squat. So if we just practice the act of doing this over and over and over again for 45 seconds, we're accomplishing our squats for the day. But instead of sitting back in our chair like we normally would with our back on the back of the chair, we're just going to tap down, stand up, tap down, stand up, obviously making sure if your chair has wheels on the bottoms that we're being cognizant of that and making sure it doesn't roll away from us. Happens to the best of us. So those are our chair squats. That's number one. Number two, simple jog or march in place just to kind of bring the heart rate up, shake the body out a little bit. Then we got tricep dips. So this could be done on the corner of your desk. This could be done using your chair. Again, being mindful if we've got one of those chairs with wheels on them. We don't want to hear anybody doing these at home and getting hurt. So we're walking our feet out, dropping our tailbone down to the ground, rising up to the top. Those elbows are tucked in nice and tight. The closer my feet are to the chair, the easier it's going to be. The further my feet walk out, the more challenging it's going to be. So you can kind of decide your base of support there. Then we've got high knees. So these either can be kind of like we're used to seeing them in an exercise class, or we can just stand next to our desk and focus on bringing our knee higher than our desk. Now, if you've got that standing desk that we talked about, that might be a little bit harder, but just trying to find what your target is, trying to get them above the hip bones. Then we've got desk push-ups. This one might be kind of hard to see, but you're just coming into a plank position, nice straight body to where your desk is, lowering your chest down and up. Again, you can use your chair as well if you'd like, making sure it doesn't roll away from you. Then we've got chair jacks. So this would be a seated version of a jumping jack, but we're sitting on the very edge of our chair, walking to the front, arms come out, legs come out. Doing these about 45 seconds. Then we've got Frankensteins. I'll show you the seated version and the standing version. Sitting up nice and tall. Again, we're not relying on that backrest here. We're up to the front, and then we're moving opposite hand to opposite foot. So we're activating the core a little bit here. We're giving those shoulders a little bit of a break if they've been super tense. And we can do the same thing from standing. If we'd like that nice hamstring stretch, stretch out our legs. Speaking of legs, working down to some calf raises. So just coming up to our tippy toes and then back down. Same thing can be done while seated in our chair if we just think about squeezing our calves together and then coming back down. And then there's just a couple more. So we've got a hip hinge to a plank. So taking your chair again. So we're hinging forward at the hips, kind of feeling a really good stretch in the back of our legs, coming forward to a plank. Hinge forward, stretch it out, forward into a plank. So we're getting a little bit of a stretch, but also some core work here as well. And then last but not least, we've got chair flutter kicks. So again, sitting on the edge of that chair, kicking our feet up into the air. You can also do that on the ground as well. But that's all it takes. So picking like 3 or 5 of those, maybe cycling through them as you'd like. 45 seconds of work, 15 seconds of rest, 20 seconds of work. I need to turn my fan on. But that's it. So that is everything that I've got for y'all today. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. I know that was kind of quick, but I'm happy to answer anything.
Jenny, thank you so much for that. That was a great overview. And I loved how you started with the 8 dimensions of wellness, just because it shows the complexity of our well-being, and it's important to take care of each of those. And then specifically what we can do to maintain our physical well-being at home. And I really love that, taking care of our bodies to fight the battles of life. I think that's a great motivation, because we never know what life's going to throw at us, right? None of us expected a worldwide pandemic. So just, being sure to take care of our bodies, no matter what life throws at us. And then just another note with, everybody and every body moves differently. And I think that's really great too, that there's no one exercise that works well for everybody. So just kind of figuring out what you enjoy and what feels good for you. So I really loved a lot of those takeaways. So if anyone has questions, feel free. I see a couple in the chat that I'll share. But if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Or you also can unmute yourselves, but if you can't do that, because I'm still figuring out Zoom, even after 6 weeks of being using Zoom, I'm still figuring out. So if you can't talk and you need to talk, just let me know in the chat and I can unmute you. I did want to just note, I had dropped the link for the Core Mindfulness that Jenny had mentioned. That is a program that's coming out of Healthy Campus that Jennifer Gorey is offering. I believe that the sessions just wrapped up actually last week, but I know that she's starting a new round of sessions in the next few weeks. So just stay tuned for that. But it should be on that page. So Jenny, one person asked that you mentioned some of the running apps that you use. So they were just wondering what those are.
Yeah, so the main one that I was referring to that kind of has that link to the mindfulness is Nike Run Club. So you don't have to pay for anything. It's a completely free app. And there's a whole section on there for guided runs. And there's a section on there that's run with Headspace. So Headspace is another great mindfulness app, and it kind of just pairs the two together. So again, you're not running with your eyes closed, but it's more so just to kind of clear your mind. But the main one I would recommend for that is Nike Run Club.
Awesome, thank you. And then we had another question of where did you get the wellness wheel from? Somebody was asking about that resource.
Yeah, so that's actually a resource that Campus Recreation has had since before I have been here. I am more than happy to share that with anybody who wants it. So we have kind of the definitions broken down on our website, but that initial graphic that I showed that just has the big wheel that we use for the coloring activity, I'm more than happy to share that with anybody that would like it.
Awesome. And then Jenny, would you mind just dropping your email in the chat just in case anyone had questions, they could email you?
Absolutely. Let me make sure I type it right, because that would be bad if I send that. Oh wait, that was a private message. Hold on. To everybody.
While you're doing that, does anyone else have any other questions in the last few minutes that we're wrapping up? Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jenny.
Awesome.
All right. Well, one more thing before we go. I did want to run a poll real fast. I meant to do this at the beginning, but my memory has once again failed me. So just want to see who's in the room today, can kind of help me figure out, just planning for the next couple weeks. So if you could just, list what your title is at Clemson, that would be helpful. All right. We got a lot of staff. That's great. Student and faculty. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for doing that. Next week, we actually have one more guest speaker. So we're going to have Brennan Beck, who's the Director of Military and Veteran Engagement, to talk to us about resilience, which I think is a very, key topic, especially in this time of COVID. So stay tuned for that. Same link and password for that as well. But Jenny, thank you again so much for coming today. We really appreciate it. And just thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Thank y'all so much. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.
All right. Bye, everyone.